Hi, welcome back, everybody, to the Nerdcore episode of interviews, where today we have Akanksha, which I so happen to try to pronounce it as best as I can be because I saw the film and a dialogue in the film was how to properly say your name, our director's name. But thank you so much for coming on. I greatly am appreciative of having everyone that comes on here come and talk about their film with us. But how are you today? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. You nailed it. You nailed the pronunciation.
Thank you. I practice. I'm not gonna lie. I did practice after seeing the film, just because I'm always afraid of messing up. But that's on my anxiety. That's not just on you. Um,
I feel like
but
I
yeah,
put the anxiety on people. Like after putting that in my film and I feel like I am promoting the anxiety. So
that helps me. I don't know about other people with anxiety, but that helps me because it gives me a chance to practice. Um, but normally, when I have guests on, I allow them to talk about your film, which is rightly so, just a beautiful film that I've seen. And the first comedy film that I've gotten to see for an interview. Nothing wrong with the dramas that I've seen or the impactful ones that I have, but yours takes its approach and in the comedy as you've said in your press notes, that just so it's more accessible, right? And I just love that. But if
oh,
you like to give the synopsis on your film.
thank you. Thank you for saying that. My film is Close Ties to Home Country, and it is about an
Hmm.
immigrant dog walker who finds home in the hearts of the rich people's dogs she dog sits. And it is very much driven from personal experience. Like I am both an immigrant and then also have been a dog walker, dog sitter for many years. And
Hmm.
I thought that the parallel between being somebody who is having to take care of dogs while these families are on vacation or they're out of town for the holidays or whatever, while being away from your own family over the holidays, I found
Yeah.
that to be kind of I was like, there's something there, and so I wanted to capture that, which has been kind of a recurring fixture in my own life. So
Got you.
yeah.
I mean, it was great. Yeah, the synopsis really. So that you even added comedy bits to the log line and synopsis, as I noticed, with the whole uh uh yes, I'm Indian, but I lived in Saudi Arabia bits. I'm like, we're going all out, but I love it. Um, so as I mentioned to you before I started the record button, um, the questions that I tried to come up with, uh, I wanted to keep it outside of the box, especially because, as you said, being of immigrant parents and like knowing people with just dealing with the questions that I'm not saying specific people, but there are specific people that I always ask the questions of, oh, how come you don't do this way, and how about you try doing that? So that's not really what I wanted to adhere to this overall, right? I wanted to talk about your film. But I guess for my first questions, seeing as I got access to the press notes, and you did explain that you are passionate about telling stories about underserved communities and using humor to making them accessible. I wanted to ask you, were you always so passionate about creating stories in that manner, or was it a thing that came out as you were growing up and that was like, I kind of want to tell this story, but I don't know how. So let me just go take and get a master's and talk about these things. Or was it just like, I always wanted to help people, but I don't know what way. And then one day it just clicked that you wanted to do it in that manner.
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that. I always cuz I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so I really grew up with storytelling as a form of escape. Like I grew up reading I would read a book a day. I had by the 5th grade read the entire elementary school library, which I think that kids who grow up with
Hmm.
books that's very much
Yeah.
um and I also watched a lot of movies. And so I always felt like storytelling was very important to me, but it wasn't, I was in college, I remember, and I did major in creative writing,
Hmm.
and then physics, which is like a whole other story. But when I was in college, I remember I was definitely not writing stories about the immigrant experience or about
Hmm.
women of color. I was very much, because I grew up watching so many white men on screen, and my favorite movies Like even my last name is from one of my favorite movies, which is like written by a white man and it's about a white man. So I was 100% writing screenplays about white men. And it's kind of crazy
Gotcha.
to me now because like I now if you ask me to do that, I would be like, what gave me the confidence to be like, oh yeah, these I know the white male experience and I'm gonna write about that. I
Yeah.
have no idea what I was thinking. And then I remember a professor one day took me aside and he was like, Akanksha, you've lived in these interesting places and you've outside of everybody here in this room, which the college I went to was predominantly white. It was in small town Indiana. He was like, out of everybody in this classroom, why, you've had the most kind of like diverse sort of set of experiences. So why don't you write about that? Like, why don't you write
Mhm.
about your own life? And the truth was because I felt so like I didn't see people like myself on screen. I didn't read stories about, people living in Saudi Arabia or kids growing up there. I felt like there was like a sense of like, oh, do we belong in front of the
Yeah.
camera? Like, do I belong in these stories? And I just didn't feel like, like I had it's really sad actually. Like what it comes down to is like when you don't see representation of you start
Yeah.
to feel so invisible. Like you're like, does anyone even want to hear stories about, somebody like me? And it's kind of wild, but that professor ended up passing away like my final year of college, and
Mhm.
I took his like words of encouragement and wisdom to me. I just took them as like, I'm gonna honor what he told me to do. And then I did, between college, I took some years between college and grad school to kind of work in the corporate world and see what that was like. But I felt like I felt this urgency now to tell my stories, and then that's what pushed me to start doing that.
Gotcha.
It was like a weird ride here. It did not come naturally to me, but now I feel, given, how well this film has been received, and I'm very grateful
Mhm.
for that, it's like it's clear to me that no, people do wanna hear stories about, people like me.
Yeah. Definitely. It's yeah. I think I agree with that. Where it's like you would think it's there's always that little voice. I guess maybe it's just the I I'm gonna choose maybe the worst word, but like the segregation of like a person of color and just of immigrant descent or being an immigrant yourself. There's that little voice that always tells you, why would anyone of this country or of like a predominantly white country and media want to hear my story, right? And just seeing people like you go on and create stories, and now we're seeing in like major media there's more representation coming along. You just love to see that, and you're like, you can finally at some point hopefully see a story of the viewer, right, where they can feel related. And your story is just beautiful, and the comedic timing phenomenal. Which I wanted to also ask. So it says here on the press notes, you also took improvisation. You train in improv and took sketch comedy classes, I believe. So was that to help you in your creative process, or did you take it just because you wanted to, and then it just so happened to help you in just your directorial writings, or was it just so happening a thing you wanted to do and it helped you in this film?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I always, since I was a child, I always have leaned towards comedy. I think it
Hmm.
was when I was like fairly young, like I found that I had the ability to make people laugh, and like the when you get a laugh there, for me, like there's like no other feeling like it. Like it's just kind of like,
Hmm.
it's like I think it's like, it really starts to become like a thing of validation, and I think a lot of comedians will attest to this,
Hmm.
where, it starts to it's like a high really is what it is, and so that was always something like comedy and humor just became like a way for me to like, kind of view the world, and I had always wanted to like harness and develop those skills. And so after college, I moved to Chicago to do comedy.
Gotcha.
And then I immediately started, I did some stand up and I started taking classes at the Second City and IO Theater and Annoyance Theater, and then I went on to do the conservatory and
Mhm.
perform and do shows and stuff there. And so it was
Awesome.
always something that I thank you. It was always something that I'd planned to do and I wanted to do, um and I'm very like glad that I got to do that because it has
Mhm.
absolutely informed the way that I direct and the way I work in film projects now.
Got you. Hey, that's great. It's definitely, you have had a lot of turning points that helped you come to this point, and that's lovely to see. It's well deserved of the awards that you got because you've had all this just knowledge gathered, and it's helped you create this a well made film.
Thank you so
So
much.
I have two questions left. One
Yes.
of them is a more serious tone one, which I will be asking next because why would anyone want to end an interview
Okay,
leaving with such a serious tone?
that's
And the other
funny.
one's just a funny little just production question. But for the more serious question that I had written, I wanted to ask about the emotional scene at the climax of the film, right? If that's okay. Uh, so for that, you can see that there are cuts, right? And I wanted to ask and mention that because I can see how it could be difficult, right, for yourself as not only directing, but you're also starring in it and you're telling your story. So was that scene difficult to do, just because it seemed like you were getting genuine memories of just your life, or of items such as it, like you weren't telling the exact story but you were genuinely telling the overall root of it, and as well as, was it did it have to be a one take just because it is a emotional scene and its intensity, or did you go through it through the shots, just like taking breaks in between and continuing on?
That's a great question. So, it was definitely challenging. It was, we
Hmm.
had a 4-day principal photography, schedule, and it
Gotcha.
was on the 3rd day, it was, like, at night that we were shooting that scene, and, at that point, like, we'd kind of like, the 1st day was we were all very, very excited, we'd been in pre-production on this for a long time and it was all like the culmination of it was coming together. The second day
Hmm.
was, we are kind of going along, but by the third day, I feel like, I was definitely feeling like already like a certain exhaustion coming on that was
Hmm.
that helped the scene. But it's funny actually because it was for the fourth day that we had
Hmm.
originally planned to have our big climactic scene. This scene ended up not in the film.
Oh, okay.
We had a scene that we had written into the script and that we shot,
Hmm.
which was a FaceTime call between me and my real sister who,
Ah.
is in India, and
Hmm.
we scheduled that and we shot it. We shot her coverage, we shot me, and that scene was supposed to be, in the script and also while in our performances, the most challenging scene of the film. So
Yeah.
the scene on and that is in the film, the climactic scene, was kind of like a precursor to that other scene that ended up on the cutting room floor.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like what I learned through this process was like, there is such a thing as like it's just a fine balance, it's just like fine tuning and finding the right balance. And I think that
Yeah.
that was something that we were able to find. It was absolutely like you deduced, I think, um challenging in terms of like multiple takes. Like we did shoot multiple takes of it, but
Hmm.
it ended up, I really ended up using most of one take in the cut.
Yeah.
Because it's again, it's the thing about performance and like
Hmm.
it ended up coming down to, this this take has all of what I need basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is, because this is, I've made like 5 or 6 other shorts, but this is like my first short that is like, having a festival run and is doing as well as it is. So it's a lot of it is just learning for me as well, like in terms of my own
Hmm.
work and like what works and what doesn't.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, now that you mentioned the scene, I also did happen to see the BTS because it just popped up at the end. So I was like, why not? So I do remember seeing, I think you guys got behind the scene footage of you guys setting up the phone call. So I was
Oh,
wondering if that was just a funny thing where it's like, oh, hey, my sister called and we're shooting this.
oh
But
my god. Thank you for
mysterious
watching
thing.
that. I was wondering
Yeah,
if
no.
anyone in the world has ever seen the BTS aside from me and my producer. So it
Yeah.
makes me happy to see that you saw that and then you cut. That was exactly we were trying to shoot that scene and we
Hmm.
did. We did. It feels like we shot a whole day's worth of footage that just we never ended up using.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, that's happens sometimes, and it's just it works out for the better sometimes. I think it's just our gut feeling when we're on the
right.
cutting board. But yeah, it's nice to hear that there was an extra scene that's not available to the public, right? It's the lost treasure for those that really want to get deep dived into it. But for my last question that I have is basically, this was filmed in Chicago, correct?
Yes, it was built in
Okay.
Chicago.
So, and it's not the noisy city as you will with New York, but it is still pretty noisy as being born there and then going every now and then to go visit. Uh, so how was it recording in the city, just like in the backyard? I know that in, like I mentioned in the behind the scenes, there are scenes where it's like, oh, is there a siren back there? Let me just stop here. um how was it filming that, and how long, I know you mentioned you had a 4-day pre-plan to shoot, so was it 4 days that it took you guys to shoot the entire film, or was that just like for the main items that you had in mind? I know there was 5 talents. That's because so I don't know if it took too long, or like it was a relatively short.
We ended up actually so 4 days was our principal photography, that was all the interior scenes, but then we
Okay.
shot the exteriors on a different day. You know what? No, it's actually it was so in total, we definitely spent 7 days, like, actually filming, but it was not 7
Okay.
full days. It was, like, I wanna say 5, like, full days.
Okay.
Um, and that's because we had to split it up. We had to split up because, after our 4 days of principal in the interiors, our 5th day, we were supposed to do exteriors, but the weather ended up being really bad, so we had to push
Mm,
that scene all the way, like, 3 months later we shot it because Chicago
wow.
is so cold. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't really want to, like, shoot, like, in the snow. I mean, we do end
Hmm.
up with some snow in that scene, like, yeah, because we could that's just Chicago.
Yeah.
So it was we shot our main most of our film at middle, late November, and then
Okay.
snow comes it started snowing December, January, so we had to wait until literally the end of February for the snow to clean out, and, like, we got so lucky because I think we ended up completing those exteriors, like, a week before the pandemic happened. Like, if
Hmm.
if if
Oh
if the
wow.
pandemic had happened, yes, I don't think we would have been able to complete our film, and
Hmm.
I feel incredibly lucky that we got those exteriors because, those scenes are, like, both to at the end and then also the patio scene in the middle of the film. They're very
Hmm.
crucial. But
Yeah, they
as for
are.
the noise, you know, this is because again, all of the 5 or 6 shorts I've made before this were all filmed in Chicago,
Okay.
and, we had I feel like there were other projects that we definitely had, like, a noise problem, like, one of my
Hmm.
projects is literally about the Women's March, and so this project particularly because it's mostly one location, we didn't have that much of a problem, with
Hmm.
sound, definitely in my other projects there, like, that has been a bigger concern. And now I do live in New York, and there's constantly construction or something or the other going on, so
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean about the noise.
I wouldn't know exactly, but I can get a sense of what you mean. But yeah, I mean that's incredible. 3 months and then finishing right before pre-pandemic.
We
That's
got so
amazing.
lucky. I'm so it was unbelievable. Like, the world
Hmm.
just shut down, and our school, like, part of the reason it took me so long to finish the film was because the audio facilities had closed down, so for
Oh, okay.
post-production, just on our audio, it took a long time. But,
Hmm.
I feel like there's no way we would have gotten those scenes. I don't know what we would have
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
Well, thank God that you finished it in time, and now you're here. You're you're getting your awards. As you mentioned, there was also a clip that I see that I just have to mention. Is I think let me try to remember the exact quotations, but not exact. Is God wants me to get this money.
Oh, money comes to me.
Oh yeah, or not even the money comes to me, but it was, I believe, you talking to Sophia. I'm not sure if that's her real name,
Oh, I know what you're
and
talking
it was
about.
like a, I think, 30
Christ
second
wants
clip.
me to get some. That's what it is.
Yeah, that, there we go.
It's so funny. I have a weird way of speaking, every now and then I'll say
You're
something I'll say something that just, like, people around me be like, "What? What are you saying?" So in that sentence, I was definitely talking about money, but, like, I
Mhm.
ended up just saying Christ wants me to get some, and of course, then there's an innuendo there.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I
that's just
totally get
me
you on that.
and
I
how
am
I
that friend
talk.
of the friend group. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on. My last
Thank
of
you. This
like
was
the
such a
most important
delightful.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
thank you.
please. Yes.
Last question, the most important of them all is is this film still in the circuits? If not, where can people go see it? Because they have to go see this film. Like, it's a
Thank
must.
you so much. I really appreciate that. Absolutely. It is. It is actually playing in Sundance Film Festival in
Wow.
January.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm incredibly, incredibly excited. It's playing both in person and virtually. So if people are in Utah in January, it's playing January 20th, 21st, 22nd, 27th, 28th, and 29th in both Park City and Salt Lake City. But
Awesome.
otherwise, people can go to the Sundance Film Festival website, and it is available to for on demand virtually. So yes, I would love for people to watch it at the Sundance website.
I will definitely be there. My editor and boss, technically, is also going. So he got his confirmation that he's approved already. So I'll
That's
tell him to go see
awesome.
that one.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, I'll see you there.
thank you. So I'll definitely gloat to him that I got to interview that director.
Oh my gosh, so
But
pumped.
anywhere else that you might want to share, socials or website for your other
Absolutely.
films?
Yeah, I would love to share. You can find me on Instagram at this human here.
Mhm.
Just this human right here. And then our film is at Close Ties Film. Our website is www.closetiesfilm.com. And then I'm also on Twitter at Akanksha Crew, just CRU.
Okay.
Uh, so any of those places, come say hi.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. This was Close Ties to Home Country, a wonderful film that you guys should definitely go see in Sundance. And if you can't, well, you'd have to wait until they post it on their social media to check it out. But nonetheless, it's a great piece that got a chance to watch and wouldn't probably had a chance to watch if I wasn't in this industry. So thank you again for all the listeners out there that watch these things to get us to keep creating them. Thank you so much to you for joining me today and letting me ask you these questions.
Oh, thank you for asking them. It was my pleasure. And I'll look forward to seeing you at Sundance.
Of course. Hopefully we can run into each other. But that has been it for this episode or this interview. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy, y'all. Peace.
Hi, I'm your dog walker, Akanksha.
Is it a cock shot?
Oh, it's pronounced Akanksha. Just think of a conch shell.
The app said you were Indian.
I was born there, and then I actually grew up in Saudi Arabia, and then I moved here.
You didn't have an accent, so I just got a little nervous for a second, but that's great.
My sister's coming to visit me, and I haven't seen her in a really long time.
Where is she?
She lives in India.
I really just wanted to take him with us to India. It's just so far away. I mean, it's like across the entire world, and he's gonna be here all by himself. But I've seen some people do it. I think
There's
George
no way.
Clooney did something like that.
Maybe you can give him some of the cultural experience that he'll be missing out on.
Yeah, that's what we're really, really hoping.
Yeah.